Hey everybody, Omar here, the knife of the party, and welcome back to my channel. And tonight's discussion, we're going to be doing a discussion on Andre Thorburn, one of the stars of South African knife making as seen here in this country, the United States. Even though knife makers like Thorburn and knife makers like Owen Wood are the guys that actually got the ball rolling as far as bringing the South African knife culture here to the United States, which is, I guess, going to be going on now about 20 years where it started to gain popularity. Thorburn popped into the picture. Owen Wood popped into the picture. They introduced themselves. Their knives were out there. But it didn't really get like the Beatles until Andre Thorburn came out. When Andre Thorburn came out and introduced his knives, we as knife collectors said, yeah, this is it. This guy is the one. And he has been the guy that has been out front as far as representing South African knives here in America. He is the one where you go, well, I own South African knives, and all of a sudden everybody goes, oh, you must be talking about Andre Thorburn. He is the center spot for all of the South African knife culture. And ever since then, there have been new knife makers popping out within the last 10 to 15 years after Andre Thorburn. Guys like Trevor Berger, guys like Clyde Challenor, guys like J.D. Van Deventer that are coming out and now bringing it out even more into the forefront. So I think that that's why this video is so important, to understand why Andre Thorburn hit it and nailed it so perfectly, as opposed to why it couldn't have been maybe another knife maker from South Africa doing that. It has a lot to do with the American taste, how we see knives, how we look at knives, the way that we kind of interpret what a knife is completely different than the way someone from South Africa would interpret what a knife looks like or should be. Because knives in South Africa there are other South African knife makers like Andre Thorburn that never make it here to the United States, only because their style might be a little bit too exotic for us as knife fans. And I think that's pretty much what this video was really all about. It's not about the fit, the finish, and the quality, because all South African knife makers got that. Let's just get that out of the way right off the bat. What South Africa does with their knives is they offer something that kind of kicks it over the edge just a little bit more than what American knife makers do here in the States. I'm not saying that American knife makers don't have that artistic flair. They do. But in South African knife making, guys, it's much more concentrated. They still give you the fit, the finish, and the quality, but the aesthetics are mind-blowing. And of course, Andre Thorburn's work is a perfect example of that. I mean, if you take a look at his knives, they are just, they're knives, but they're also works of art that really, when you have this in your hand, not only works of art aesthetically, but even once you get one of these in your hand and you start flipping it and you start seeing the action, I'm telling you, you may have never have felt anything like this from an American knife maker. It's just a completely different experience. And the reason that it's a different experience, obviously, is the materials that are being used. You're not going to see materials like this put on American knives so much. You're seeing it happen a little bit now, thanks to knife companies like Spyderco that are trying to bring these knife makers out to the forefront to promote the knife community, and I think that's a fantastic idea. But when you go into customs, you're getting it full-blown, in-your-face aesthetics that are just mind-blowing. And Andre Thorburn hit it right on the nail in a sense that it's not so over-the-top that you're kind of like taken aback. It's just absolutely perfect. So if we take a look at the very first custom we see here, first of all, this is my Andre Thorburn L38. I believe it's the L38 custom front flipper. Yeah, I mean, as you can see, this knife is full-blown aesthetics. You know, we've got the eagle on the knife that's made by his wife, Marguerite. You've got the white Westinghouse handles on the knife. And then you've also got the file work. Now, the file work is something that was exclusive to Andre Thorburn. I don't know if there are any other knife makers out there that were introducing it in quite this fashion. Obviously, Des Horn does it to some extent. Other knife makers have done it to some extent. But Andre Thorburn is known for it. And he tries to do it differently every time. This is just a spectacular, spectacular piece. Another thing you have to understand, too, is that when I say that this is art, it really is art. I mean, take a look at this knife. It's not just because there's an eagle head on it, but it looks like literally an eagle has slammed onto my knife. That's what makes this an artwork. It's almost like the white Westinghouse actually mimics the beak of a bird. You know, because birds may have that kind of like that line, that dark line going down the center of their beak. And this kind of looks like that. And the fact that, you know, that the eagle head is right there, it just makes it much, much more aesthetically pleasing, you know, when you're looking at the knife. Even the way that the knife was sculpted, I mean, we see a front flipper knife, which is already foreign to most of us here in the States, right? A lot of us just haven't gotten into front flippers. You know, maybe only just probably 15 years ago we started getting introduced to it. But yeah, even his front flipper is sculpted. As you can see, his front flipper is kind of smooth up there on the top. Jimping is very, very little on the top there. But you still have access to the knife. It's not like he doesn't make you... He makes it all that difficult for you to open the piece. Pocket clips are sculpted that way with these lines going down on there, as you can see. And then he finishes it off with a ceramic ball. These are aesthetics you're just not going to see here in the United States on any knife. But Andre Thorburn goes through that trouble. He wants you to know that you're buying an artwork, and yet he's not going to... He's not going to take away the tool aspect of his work either. The second knife on the table, this is the L51 custom flipper. This is probably considered Andre Thorburn's production knife. This is not a one-of-a-kind. This knife is a one-of-a-kind. This one is not. He may have made, I don't know, probably about 50 of these, all the same color, same exact action. So this is sort of like a custom production type knife, if you will. It doesn't look all that different from an American knife. It's just that the aesthetics are pinned with something extra. We've got the nice blooping going throughout the entire knife. You've got, again, the file work on that is fantastic. I mean, his knives, you know, they're more than average tools. I mean, this one here, you can actually wear it with a suit. It looks that pretty. You know, you've got the carbon fiber twill on the knife, 2 whole slabs of it, right on the knife as the exterior material on it. And of course, the knife is made of titanium, which is no stranger to us here in the States. We love the titanium, and he gives it to us. In fact, that's one of the basics that you get with any custom is titanium. The final knife on this one is the Andre Thorburn, oh geez, I'm going to say it's the 54 or 48, I'm sorry. The Andre Thorburn 48 front flipper. This one is a rarity now. You don't see this one too often in the front flipper version. It just seems to be he's changing his style again. But this is one of his older models. As you can see again, we got the file work, and if you take a look at the file work, this file work here is all done by hand. He does this completely by hand. The file work on backspacer, and it is done differently each time. Usually, he tries not to repeat the file work if he can help it. None of these are the same. As you can see, they're all different. And that's what you're paying for. You're paying for that artistic quality that you won't get from Zero Tolerance or Spyderco or Benchmade. They're just not going to be able to offer that to you because it's very, very, very time consuming just to work on one knife. I have no idea how long it takes a knife maker to work on just one knife that's being ordered, especially if they're doing a lot of it by hand or all of it by hand. But yeah, it takes time to do that. Now, as I was saying before, Andre Thorburn never goes over the top with his style of knife making. We see this, we like it, it looks like a knife, it's not that exotic to us. Now, if we were to take a look at, say, some of the more exotic knife makers from South Africa, how about this guy right here, John Arnold? If we compare his work to Andre Thorburn, this one kind of takes, I'm going to take this away, take these two knives out of here. This one kind of takes you back a little bit. I mean, it is just a lot, it's just sculpted a lot more wilder looking than, say, something like this. I mean, let's say you're a knife collector that's been collecting a ton of production knives, everything from zero tolerance to, I don't know, boost blades to Wee knives, and now you're looking to get into other countries or other cultures of knife making, and you want to go, let's say you decide you want to do South Africa. If you took a look at both these knives, which one would you go for? This one seems to mimic more of what we like here in the States, you know, angularly at least, right? You know, it looks like a knife. It doesn't look all that weird. There's nothing, you know, that doesn't tell me, you know, I mean, if you took away the handles and, you know, all the flash that you see on here, stylistically, you know, if you're someone who's into zero tolerance, then you could probably go more for this knife than this one, which is angularly more exotic. I mean, it's first of all, if you take a look at it, there's a lot of angles on the knife, a lot of jagged angle edges, and even the blade shape's a little funky. You know, you've got swedges and curves and sharps, and it's like, what? My eyes don't even know where to look with this. It's just wild, you know. Even the handle themselves, they're more rounded, you know what I mean, sculpted roundly. So this is more of a representation of South African knives than, you know, of what a South African knife would be, as opposed to what Andre Thorburn offers, which is more of stylistically a crossover. But yeah, I mean, I think this probably represents more what South Africans like in a knife rather than what we like here in the United States. However, John Arnold is now gaining popularity here in the States, and it's because of people like Andre Thorburn, who got here first, at least in my opinion, opened our eyes just a touch and said, hey, here's what we're offering. Once we got into Andre Thorburn, now we move over into John Arnold, and we move over into much more exotic knife makers. So now, you know, our eyes know now that we're looking at art. And it's all accountable to Andre Thorburn coming here and kind of like just taking over the reins for it. Now, his style hasn't changed. He still makes his knives this way, you know, where they're more appealing to the United States or the American knife collector versus what John Arnold would offer us, which you could go with it, but you're going to stand back a second and go, you know what, this is just a little bit too wild for me. I need something that's a little bit more subdued. And, of course, Andre Thorburn gives it to you. Same thing with, and it's because of that, you know, now that John Arnold has now gained popularity here in the States, we've now got newer knife makers that are from South Africa that have even funkier styles, like Henny du Plessis, who's brand new here in the knife world. I mean, both these knives are kind of somewhat similar. This is made by Henny du Plessis. You can see the likenesses between these two knives, but neither one of these two knife makers, I think, could just come here to the States and think their knives are going to be a huge hit without Andre Thorburn. So I just wanted to make that point in this video, how much Andre Thorburn has influenced custom knives here in the States and why his work is so important. I just wanted to bring that up, so maybe give you a little example of that. This is part one of the Andre Thorburn highlight. What I'm going to do in part two, which is coming up next, is I'm going to introduce another knife maker who is somewhat similar to Andre Thorburn, but also kind of controversial, and not in a positive way, unfortunately, which I think needs to be talked about. I've kind of shied away from that topic regarding this knife maker that I'm going to bring out here in a few minutes in the next part of the video. But I think you'll find that discussion even more interesting. And I'm hoping I'm going to maybe bring up some comments on my channel about what you guys think about this knife maker's work. So I will see you all in the next video coming up in a few minutes. I just wanted to give my quick shout out to Andre Thorburn and his celebrated work for the last 15 years here in the United States. He has since kind of slowed down, kind of taking a step back. Andre Thorburn is spending a little bit more time with his family. He's still making knives, but not at the same production level as he did, say, maybe 10 years ago. He's kind of stepping back, kind of enjoying his family a little bit more, being more with his family. He's nowhere near retirement, but, you know, as you get older, your values change. You want to get more into your family, find out what's more important. Yes, he's still working and still making knives, but I guess you could say he's maybe in more of a transitional period. Andre Thorburn doesn't make all that many knives anymore. He is down to possibly roughly making about 45 knives a year. So think about that for a second while you ponder whether or not you want to get into custom knives, maybe even discover Andre Thorburn's work. That's something to maybe that's something you might want to consider, because a guy that only makes 45 knives a year, you're going to want to get on his books. Granted, as you guys know, maybe you guys that are watching my channel know, custom knives are not cheap. The price is very, very expensive. But once you go down this road, if you are a knife collector at all, you'll find a way to stay here, or at least discover this part of knife making that may have eluded you before. And more than likely probably because of the price, and I understand that because it did that to me also. So this is Omar, the knife of the party guy, signing off. I'll be right back with part 2, and I'll see you guys in a bit.